Check, 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 check. Good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street, and is now officially in the books 2-hour editions of Frankly Speaking for 1 week. We've had 1 week of 2-hour Frankly Speakings, and what a fun week it has been. Today, to celebrate, we have not one, not two, but 3 guests on the program this morning. This is very much Johnny Carson-esque because it is a wide range of guests. We're going to be talking with, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Eric Stabenow. He is the director of the Glenn Miller Orchestra, and they have just released today a new album looking back at 80 years of the Glenn Miller Orchestra. And on that album is one of my favorites, someone I had the pleasure of interviewing years ago, and that was Crystal Gayle. Well, the Glenn Miller Orchestra 80th anniversary of the Army Air Force Band album comes out today, containing 15 classic tracks, and we're going to be talking with orchestra leader Eric Stabenow. And it also turns out Eric is from Rochester, as luck would have it. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Then we'll be talking with Don Berlew, the brand new president of Watkins Glen International, because it is opening weekend. And we're going to hear all about that from Don. And then for nearly an hour, we'll be talking with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Yes, everything at Albany. We weren't sure if he'd be able to make it, and he texted me yesterday, and it turns out he will. The budget deadline has been pushed until April 8th now, which is interesting because didn't they want to take off, not Phil, but weren't there talks on Politico, a lot of members of the Assembly wanted to take off so they could see the eclipse. So ironic that the deadline has been pushed to the 8th. We're going to talk about all of the issues of the day if we have the opportunity. First, a comment after the program from yesterday from a viewer. We are so lucky to have Joe. Yes, yesterday we had Joe Sempolinski on the program, former congressman, current candidate for Assembly. I haven't heard from him. Yesterday was the filing deadline. So as of yesterday, it looked like he was running unopposed, which would be very, very nice. Joe is also the current chairman of the Steuben County Republican Committee. So yes, I agree. We are lucky to have Joe, and he does a great job on this program, and everybody in the comments reminds him. Also, another comment from a viewer. I didn't think 2 hours would fly by like this. How did you manage with one? That is a great question. It's almost, it seems like so long ago that it was only 1 hour. How did we fit in so much in 1 hour? I don't have the answer. But now we're fitting in so much more in 2 hours, and I think it's been going, and I don't want to speak for you. I hope you agree. I think it's been going great. I haven't seen any real hiccups. I've been very, very happy with it. So let's start here. I talk about it so often. No, I'm not going to talk about the supermayor. But I talk so often about voting and how important it is and getting out, especially at local races, but always taking that right and going out and voting just to, again, prove to you, and I know I don't really need to prove to you because you're most likely voters, but that it is important, that it can come down to your vote. Now, people say my vote doesn't matter. Did you hear about this in California? And this is coming from NBC News. A congressional race in California could look very different from the rest as 2 candidates are poised to tie for second place in a state where typically only the top 2 finishers advance to the general election. Democrats Evan Lowe and Joe Summiton each garnered 16.6% of the votes, which both tallied 30,249 votes each. Yes, a tie of 30,249 each. Now, they both have their names on the ballot, along with fellow Democrat and first-place finisher Sam Liccardo. So there'll be 3 Democrats on this California congressional race ticket, unless a voter requests a recount. Now, you've got to believe there will be a recount, but it goes to show you, once again, how important your vote can be. And especially when we talk about it on local races so often, where it does come down to a handful of votes. Sometimes one vote, two vote. So please keep that in mind as we near primary day on June 25th. And then, of course, the all-important general election day in November. Hey, speaking of local, I'm going to go through some things quickly because we want to get to as much as we possibly can with so many guests on the program. Feel free to weigh in at any time on any of the topics that we discuss. I would love to hear your take, because I hope we can get to it, about President Biden's call with Benjamin Netanyahu. It's interesting because the left is turning on Joe, as we know. But even in his response to Israel, they're not happy, saying his system, if you will, is not working. We're going to talk about that. What Blinken had to say yesterday, equating Israel to Hamas, was sickening. The call from Biden demanding an immediate ceasefire. We saw yesterday a lot of selling out, if you will, of Israel. So I would like to hear your take on it. I know we have, when it comes to international issues, some very different opinions out there. And as you know, I'm always very welcome to reading any and all opinions if we have the time and if it fits what we're talking about. I should put that disclaimer in there. This is exciting, coming out of NewYorkUpstate.com. 8 upstate New York restaurants are among the top 10 finalists in the annual Best Burger Contest put on by the New York Beef Council. The contest opened on March 1st with the public nominating their favorite burger. The finalists, chosen by the number of votes in an online ballot, were announced yesterday morning. And there's no sense reading the top 10 list because we got Syracuse, we got Port Jervis, we've got some areas around us. And I was looking at even Rochester, and I was looking at the list, and there it says Corning, Butchers and Sons in Corning on the top 10 list. So congratulations to them. A panel of anonymous judges will visit each of the finalists over the next few weeks. They will evaluate their burgers based on taste, appearance, and adherence to proper doneness standards, which is, to them, 160 degrees Fahrenheit. The judges' scores and comments will be tallied, culminating in the winner's announcement on May the 1st, the start of May Beef Month. As we all know, May is Beef Month, something we all celebrate fiercely. I just thought that was kind of nice. So congratulations to Butchers and Sons for making that top 10 list. And there's some tough competition in there. And now with the anonymous judges, how exciting, how much fun. I thank you for everyone sending in waves as well. So we're going to take a short break right here off the jump. I do have... Do you see, I would like your opinion on this as well. The CDC director says agency is, quote, taking bird flu very seriously. Have you started to see the headlines on this saying, what was it, 100 times deadlier than COVID, something like that? Starting to see these headlines depending on what news outlets you go to. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has said they are taking the bird flu outbreak very seriously as fears grow of the virus jumping from cattle to humans. This week, a farm worker in Texas became the second person in the U.S. ever to become infected with strain H5N1 of the bird flu after catching it from an infected cow. This is all getting a little confusing. The bird flu came from a cow. It sounds like that old song about the fly. Anyway, I don't take this lightly. I'm just suggesting. It's also the first time the virus has been detected in cattle. So bird to cattle to human. The CDC is monitoring the situation very closely as dairy farms in Idaho, Kansas, Michigan, New Mexico, and Texas struggle with outbreaks. Cohen said, that just means more opportunity for this virus to mutate and change. And that's what we want to make sure we are continuing to stay ahead of. Oh, wow. So we're seeing the groundwork laid for, at least, if nothing else, fear being pushed by the media. But I would like to hear your opinion on it as well. Look how much we have covered in a mere 10 minutes. And we have almost 2 hours left. Again, Don Berlew is going to be our guest, Eric Stabanon, and Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. So stay with us. We're going to take our first short break, and then we'll be back with Frankly Speaking on the Friday morning edition, 2 hours, right here on Big Fox.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselsen's hot tub. Hesselsen's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselsen's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselsen's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselsen's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
The world's pizza has been baked in ovens made of stone, but you can't put one of those on the countertop in your home. Introducing Paisano, the authentic pizza oven by Granite Stone. Now make the world's most delicious pizza with real stone right in your own home. You simply set it and let it make golden, crispy, extra cheesy stone-baked pies in under 6 minutes. The secret is the dual-controlled heat zones that quickly heat the real ceramic stone up to 800 degrees so you can stone bake just like the pros. Plus, there's no gas, wood, or charcoal needed. Paisano is electric, plug-in, and portable. You can get your Paisano pizza oven for just 4 easy payments of $39.99. And we're gonna drop one payment. You get it all for just 3 easy payments of $39.99. Plus, we'll ship your entire order free.
Call 1-800-597-7208 or order online at buypaisano.com. Call now.
Dale pues, mamá ya, muévete más loco, solo tú lo sabes. Así es, con las manos en la cabeza, sacúdete, sacúdete, mira, sacúdete.
It's a season of Sherry.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
We are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Thank you for the waves this morning, and thank you to everyone. Not only made this week so exciting, being 2 hours long, but also because of the comments, but also setting maybe your alarm a little earlier or changing your morning habits to watch the 6 o'clock hour. I can't tell you how much that means to me. And as I said, I say it humbly, but I think it's been going very well. So, you've probably been curious about Leave It Blank campaign, and this will tie in with our discussion on Israel. But the Leave It Blank campaign, if you recall, was kind of the anti-Israel sentiment in the Democrat Party saying we want to do a protest vote during the primary, even though obviously the primary, which was on Tuesday, it's essentially locked in. Both candidates have the delegates they need. So it was kind of a little bit for show, but by law it was still necessary. And many of us went out and voted. Like I said, with our conversation with Joe yesterday, I think I was number 18 in my district. So it wasn't a huge turnout. But having said that, the Leave It Blank campaign, the protest vote against Joe Biden, got 12% of the vote in New York's Democrat presidential primary, even as Joe Biden easily won Tuesday's vote. Supporters of the Leave It Blank campaign celebrated the number of apparent protest votes cast in the election. Now, this is still an unofficial number because, remember, it takes about 3 weeks, I think they said, to get the official number. But so far, the State Board of Elections has only released unofficial preliminary results for the primary election. Those results show that Biden received 269,058 votes statewide. That's a low turnout. While Representative Dean Phillips received 10,644 votes, and author Marianne Williamson received 14,445 votes. I should have asked Joe. He might have known this. I didn't bother looking it up ahead of time. Not that I was really that curious. Remember, Marianne Williamson did the interesting thing of suspending her campaign, I believe it was in February, and then unsuspending her campaign because she somehow beat Dean Phillips in a primary, even though her campaign was suspended. So last I knew, She's unsuspended. The campaign is unsuspended. Anyway, in addition, city and state has determined that roughly 39,000 ballots were cast for none of the three candidates. 39,000. So over triple what Dean Phillips got. That means that Biden received about 79% of the vote statewide. 79%. Blank received about 12% of the vote. Williamson received about 4% and Phillips about 3%. The total likely also includes votes that the State Board of Election counts as void, which includes overvotes such as voting for more than one candidate, or mismarked ballots like circling a candidate rather than filling in a bubble. Why would that let it go through the machine? I'm sorry. Right? I mean, unless it's very different in some voting locations, sometimes a pain to get the machine to read it. So how would that read in the machine if someone just circled the name? New York City reports both blank and void votes as unrecorded. So what that paragraph is from City and State New York is trying to maybe make excuses why that number is so high. Nearly 15% of Democrat primary voters did not vote for any of the three candidates on the ballot. That's in New York City. So just interesting to me how they downplay that, but yeah, how many pieces have you seen if you're like me and you tend to read more online than watch the news at night, or if you watch the news, how much has been about Trump didn't get as many votes because Nikki Haley took, what was it? Don't quote me because I can't remember the number that sticks in my head. Let's say 11%. And then they say those 11% will never, ever, ever vote for Donald J. Trump. I don't accept that premise. I do believe the more Democrat-leaning, more moderate, not even moderate, I think more Democrat-leaning Nikki Haley supporters won't vote for Trump. I'll fully admit that. I think there was a lot of people that voted for Nikki Haley that were maybe really Democrats at heart, but are still registered Republican, or they're hoping for a Romney-McCain kind of strain of the Republican Party to come back. But at the end of the day, will those people, and I'll ask you the question because you know I've posed the question numerous times, do you think that the people that voted for Nikki Haley, and I guess maybe you could call that a protest vote, in the New York primary or in any of the primaries, do you think they will never, at the end of the day, vote for Trump? That they'll see the domestic and foreign policy of Biden right now and say, well, I guess we can stand 4 more years of this? I think it's a fair question. It's not a biased question. I think it's fair. So Biden did demand, speaking, and this ties in with the Leave It Blank campaign because that was a kind of an anti-Israel protest vote against Biden. Biden demands an immediate ceasefire from Benjamin Netanyahu in the phone call yesterday. In a statement from the White House, it said President Biden spoke by telephone with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The two leaders discussed the situation in Gaza. President Biden emphasized that the strikes on humanitarian workers and the overall humanitarian situation are unacceptable. He made clear that the need for Israel to announce and implement a series of specific, concrete, and measurable steps to address civilian harm, humanitarian suffering, and the safety of aid workers. He made clear that U.S. policy with respect to Gaza will be determined by our assessment of Israel's immediate actions on these steps. He underscored that an immediate ceasefire is essential to stabilize and improve the humanitarian situation and protect innocent civilians, and he urged the Prime Minister to empower his negotiators to conclude a deal without delay to bring the hostages home. As if Netanyahu doesn't want to bring the hostages home. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't there an official ceasefire on October 6th? Wasn't there a ceasefire on October 7th until Hamas decided to attack? You have to accept this premise, as so many are pushing in the media and so many in the Democrat Party are pushing. You have to accept the fact in your mind, and it's not a fact. You have to maybe ignore in your mind that Hamas attacked Israel. And I think there's not a lot of empathy, because I'm curious, and I don't really have the answer for this with the way the Democrat Party is going today. But God forbid if there were an attack here by, for instance, someone on the border, because that's, if you look at the makeup of Israel, if someone on the border had done that here, would there be as much call for taking it easy? I mean, because the sad point is Israel is attempting to do that. There's a great piece, and we're not going to have a chance to get to all of it. I'm going to highlight a few points from it later on if we have a chance. But there's a piece at the New York Post this morning saying that Israel Defense Forces are working to protect civilians, not kill them. But the way the media coverage is, you would think this was essentially intentional. But I'll continue with the last part of this statement. The two leaders also discussed public Iranian threats against Israel and the Israeli people. President Biden made clear that the United States strongly supports Israel in the face of those threats. Yes, the CIA has warned that there could be an attack by Iran on Israel in 48 hours, and that news broke yesterday, so less than 48 hours. The U.S. is now, though, just to give you an update, is now awaiting the response from Netanyahu. We'll have a little bit more to talk about with this. You can weigh in on the issues of the day. Yes, we have covered a lot. We're just getting started, and when we come back, we are going to hear from Eric Stabenow. He is the orchestra leader for the Glenn Miller Orchestra. 80 years they're celebrating. And that amazing story, of course, music that is so synonymous with the World War II era and the tragic story of Glenn Miller. And, well, they have an album out, and they're still touring. It's amazing. They have an album out with 15 classics, one that includes the great Crystal Gayle. So you'll find out more about that here in just a moment because the album is out today. And I would mention that Eric Stabenow is from Rochester, so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Then we're going to talk with Don Berlew from Watkins Glen International, the new president, because it's opening weekend. And after that, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. So it's not too late to get your questions in for the Assemblyman. I know there's a lot of questions regarding the budget, a lot of questions about, well, something we talk a lot about, the electric vehicle mandates for schools, the buses. But any topic that you'd like to hear the Assemblyman discuss, please let me know before it's too late. Right now, we got to take a break. And then when we come back, Eric Stabenow. So stay with us. This is, Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We'll be right back.
Is it time for your next oil change? Are you too busy to do it yourself? Let the professionals at Quick Lube do it for you. With 2 locations better to serve you, Quick Lube makes it easy. Get your oil and filter changed and never leave the comfort of your vehicle. No appointment is needed. Just drive up and let Quick Lube do the rest. Keep your motor humming with Quick Lube on South Main Street in Elmira and Chemung Street in Horsehead.
Do you hate way food that's gone bad? Does your pantry look like a bad disaster? What if you could keep your food as fresh as the day you bought it and vacuum seal any ingredient? Eric Thies here with my new portable, powerful PowerXL Duo NutriSealer. This incredible breakthrough in technology can savor any flavor while it seals in the freshness. What's the secret? The Duo NutriSealer will remove all the air. Once all the air is removed, the air pressure detection system is automatically activated and seals your bag tight. And it's the only patented handheld sealer that creates double seals. The Duo has a floating hinge and a built-in slicer to make bags of any size. You can even seal through liquid. Don't let its small compact size fool you. With just one touch of a button, the Duo seals any bag and it will stay bonded until you open it, guaranteed. The Duo NutriSealer locks in nutrients and freshness so you can keep your food 5 times longer. Prep and freeze delicious meals, or buy wholesale and seal individual packs and save up to 60%. Our bags are BPA free, microwave safe, and will never leach. Now you can get my PowerXL Duo NutriSealer for only 3 payments of $33.33. Plus, it comes with an ironclad 1-year VIP guarantee protection plan and my recipe book filled with marinades for super delicious meals. We're still not done. Order now and you'll receive an entire year's worth of bags. That's a $50 value, yours free. And we'll also include free shipping. All this is a $300 value, yours today for only 3 payments of $33.33. Remember, this is a special TV-only offer. So call or go to PowerXLDuo.com right now.
Call 1-877-869-2149 or go to PowerXLDuo.com.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We're broadcasting from the Hesselson studio. And joining us, we're about to talk about the Glenn Miller Orchestra. Eric, thanks so much for being on the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So the new album, the Glenn Miller Orchestra, 80th Anniversary of the Army Air Force Band, is out today. It contains 15 classics. But I think this is important. It has strings involved. How does that impact the music?
Yeah, there was a short period in Glenn's career when he was in the military, and he led a military band that had not only the typical sort of jazz band or swing band that we think of, but had strings as well. So the arrangements, the music from that period is extremely beautiful and lush, and it really lends a lot to the sound having the string section there too.
What do you think it is that has created this lasting power of Glenn Miller after all these years?
Yeah, it's a great question. The band still tours 8 years later, and I think part of it is because Glenn had some of these big #1 hits back in the 30s and the 40s. I think there's certain musicians that will be remembered from every decade, and Glenn is without a doubt one of those musicians from the 30s and 40s. And the other reason is the association of this music with World War II.
Right.
You know, this was significant music at a significant time in this country's history, and it will always be associated with World War II.
You really couldn't have a movie about World War II without some Glenn Miller song being in the soundtrack, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right about that.
I was surprised to learn in doing research before our interview here that he received the first ever gold record. Now that's thrown around so often. But in 1942 with Chattanooga Choo Choo, which is such obviously a song that's synonymous with that time as well.
Yeah, first gold record for Chattanooga Choo Choo. They recorded it in 1941, actually for a film that starred Glenn Miller called Sun Valley Serenade. And within a year of its release, the next year, 1942, it had sold 1 million copies. So it was a bit of a publicity stunt, I suppose, at the time. Recorded this first gold record live on a radio broadcast. But that kind of thing stuck, and yeah, we got gold records and platinum and diamond and all that for ever since.
Yeah. So what goes into picking the songs for an album like this?
Yeah, we looked through a lot of these songs that featured the string section, specifically around 1944, which is, we're now celebrating the 80th anniversary of that. And there's a lot to choose from. But we just picked some of the great melodies and some of the beautiful songs from that time period. And as a matter of fact, this stuff was performed back in 1944, but it was never officially recorded in the studio.
Oh, interesting.
So this is kind of the first time this music has been recorded this way.
Now, how much were you involved with the project, other than obviously playing?
Yeah, quite a bit. Yeah, so I play tenor saxophone and sing a few of the vocals as well. But, you know, we had a period of preparing for this project, you know, where we first listened through the music and chose the music, and I was involved with some other folks in the company and our producers to kind of make some of those decisions. And then once we had the songs picked out, really it was just about preparing the band, preparing the musicians to go in the studio. And we're lucky that the Glenn Miller Orchestra tours as much as we do. So we had the same musicians on tour that we went into the studio with. So the whole thing, hopefully, you know, is pretty seamless.
Yeah, of course. You already had a leg up. You had all the practice sessions in. And we have to mention this because this is a friend of my show. The Grand Ole Opry member, Crystal Gayle, is a part of the album. How cool is that?
It's so exciting. It really is. And she sang beautifully on this classic from that era called Sentimental Journey. So that's kind of the single to introduce people to the album, and it's extremely exciting.
She's phenomenal, isn't she? She must be nice to work with, too, I would imagine.
Yeah, you know, we recorded some different parts of this album at different times. So she went in the studio a little bit afterwards. But, yeah, just fantastic vocals and yeah, just a fantastic opportunity.
Do you have a favorite that's on the album?
Crystals, I would certainly say is up there. Sentimental Journey. You know, I love all the vocals. I sang some of the traditionally male vocals, and we also have a gal singer who sang some of the traditionally female vocals, and of course Crystal's songs. So I would say the vocals are some of my favorites.
How different is it to record an album like this? And we're talking about the Glenn Miller Orchestra 80th anniversary of the Army Air Force Band out today. How different is it doing this and performing live?
Yeah, the experience typically is quite a bit different going into the studio versus playing live. However, the goal with this recording was to really kind of simulate the sound of a live show. So, you know, typically if you go in the studio, you might be in there for days or weeks at a time with every musician doing something a little bit different. But the way we recorded this is we got all 15 of us in the Glenn Miller Orchestra. I'm maybe counting wrong, 16, 17. We got the whole band.
You lose track at some point.
And we all recorded our parts in the same room at the same time, which is rare, especially nowadays for like pop music or country music or whatever. So we did try to simulate the experience of like a live situation, but of course recorded in the studio. You've got all the microphones, and it's going to be a little different inherently.
Now, have you found yourself always to be a Glenn Miller fan? Is this something you grew up with?
Yeah. I always liked big band music and swing music. My parents liked this stuff too, so I grew up a bit in the household. And I started playing the saxophone at age 10, so just ended up playing in some jazz bands after that. And I was, of course, familiar with Glenn's music.
Of course.
That time, I didn't necessarily envision myself touring with the Glenn Miller Orchestra at any point, but
since 2017, as a matter of fact. So you've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, 7 years now. I thought I'd play on the band for about 7 months.
So before I ask you what that journey's been like being on since 2017, I've got to mention this because I think there was some confusion with our paperwork, but you're actually not that far from us originally. We're in Corning, New York. So you are Western New York. It just said Western. What part of New York are you from?
Yeah, I'm from Rochester, actually.
Oh, okay. Perfect. So I hope you're familiar with Corning.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Museum of Glass. Yeah,
of course. So, and you went to the Eastman School of Music. So we're all very familiar with this. So you're kind of a hometown boy makes good. How's that?
Oh, awesome. Yeah. And we come through Western New York a few times every year. We played Buffalo last fall. We're playing Rochester soon.
Oh, that's great.
So, yeah, I love it. Yep.
So what has the journey been like for you to be involved with this since 2017?
It's really been incredible. I love this music, big band music, swing music, of course, Glenn Miller's music.
Yeah.
And this band is really the last one that's kind of touring full time like this. Back in the 30s and the 40s, this was the popular music.
Right.
And there was bands all over the country. And nowadays, the Glenn Miller Orchestra is certainly the last ones that play as much as we do. So to have the opportunity to play this music professionally on a full-time basis all around the country is just really special, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Now, before we go, I know you're a busy person. What would you say to people that are maybe on the fence, say, should I get this album? What would you say about this album that would convince them to go out today and buy the Glenn Miller Orchestra 80th anniversary of the Air Force Band?
Yeah, this genuinely is some of the most beautiful music of the 1940s and the swing era. If you're a fan of Glenn Miller, it has that same classic Glenn Miller sound, but the addition of the strings is just incredible. It's beautiful stuff. Just listen to one of the songs on the album, and I'm sure you'll love it.
Sure, you'll love it. And I think you mentioned, but how long from beginning to end does a project like this take? Was this in the works for a long time?
Yeah, I think the planning stage, I don't even know how long that was, but even once we got into the studio, people are in and out of the studio, and it needs to be mixed and mastered, and it's, it has taken probably a year and a half at this point to kind of blend everything together, which is exciting.
Where's the best place for people to buy the album?
Yeah, check out our website, glennmillerorchestra.com, and that's got some information about the band, and it's got a store on there with the albums and our tour schedule as well. So that's probably the easiest place to find everything for the band, glennmillerorchestra.com.
We'll put Corning on your tour list next time, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks for being on the show. Good luck with the album. All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us.
Attention, this is an important message for firefighters, members of the military, and airport workers. For decades, first responders and firefighters at military bases and airports used a chemical-based foam to fight fires. Studies have shown that chemicals used to make aqueous film-forming foam, or AFFF, are highly toxic to humans and have been associated with several types of cancer. If you or someone you know was diagnosed with any of those cancers, call now for a free case review.
Rated the hearing aids of 2023 by Forbes, the Audion Atom 2 series offers superior sound quality and functionality for a fraction of the price. For just $189 a pair, the Atom 2 features 4 different hearing modes for all types of hearing loss. It packs crystal clear sound, a nearly invisible design, and is even rechargeable.
I actually like them better than my old $5,000 hearing aids. They're so comfortable, I forget I'm wearing them. And the sound is amazing.
The Atom Pro 2 is our smallest hearing aid yet, featuring advanced background noise cancellation and is the world's first hearing aid with built-in UV cleaning that kills 99% of bacteria.
I could not believe how my hearing and life changed without seeing a doctor or having a hearing test.
Join over 500,000 happy customers today and get the hearing you deserve.
Call 1-800-434-9816 or go to audionhearing.com to get your pair of Audien hearing aids starting at just $189.
Shell Missy face off in
Why can't we watch DuckTales? Because we don't learn anything.
Book Smarts versus Street Smarts.
Is it working? Are you feeling motivated? Very.
It's the battle of twins.
Life is so confusing. I always hoped it would be easier for me when I grew up. It's gonna be all right. You were faking. Bazinga.
Young Sheldon. Weeknights at 6:30 on Big Fox.
Our beautiful view of Market Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Thank you to Eric Stabenow for being our guest with the Glenn Miller Orchestra. I thought that'd be we're having a different day today than normal. A couple things a little bit different because we're celebrating our first full week of 2 hours on the air. Thank you to everybody commenting about how they like certain Glenn Miller songs or there's certain memories around that. They had contacted me, the organization, and asked if I'd like to do an interview, and I said, why not? So before we get into the topics, I'm sorry, got a lot of comments coming in, and I love it. Thank you. I recently saw a news piece from New York City with regards to squatters and the legal issues involved. Why can't the legislature create a law that portrays these individuals for what they are, criminals who break into a property owner's property? After all, this is breaking and entering, a crime that is already prosecuted when individuals commit the crime, quote, normally. That's a great point. And I know we're going to be talking with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano here in just a little bit, around the top of the hour. First, we're going to hear from Don Berlew from Watkins Glen International. And after Don, we'll be talking with the Assemblyman. So the next hour is very full. And I know that is one of the main topics that I'll be asking Phil about is squatters and what they call in the city, or I mean, I guess that's the name of the law, squatters' rights. As so many have said, what about the property owner's rights? That's a very, very good point. Thank you. So we're talking about Israel. U.S. awaits Netanyahu's response after Biden's ultimatum. I have my thoughts on that, what I'd like to hear Netanyahu say, but we won't get into that. Then Antony Blinken, I'm telling you, and he was strong at the beginning too. Did you hear what he said yesterday? Quote, what happened after October 7th could have ended immediately if Hamas had stopped hiding behind civilians, released the hostages, and put down its weapons. But Israel is not Hamas. Israel is a democracy. Hamas, a terrorist organization. Democracies place the highest value on human life and every human life. As it has been said, whoever saves a life saves the entire world. So he starts off talking tough and blaming Hamas, and then you start to see the caving of, quote, that's our strength. It's what distinguishes us from terrorists like Hamas. If we lose the reverence for human life, we risk becoming indistinguishable from those we confront. Yes, I know many are watching right now and saying, well, this could take an interesting turn if we really wanted to discuss the reverence for human life. But let's focus on Israel for just a moment. Equating what Hamas did in a way to what Israel is doing is despicable. Blinken did not provide evidence that Israel was failing to protect civilians. The ratio of civilians killed to terrorists killed in Israel's counterattack in Gaza is less than 2-1, an historic low, according to this piece. West Point professor John Spencer wrote, all available evidence shows that Israel has followed the laws of war, legal obligations, best practices in civilian harm mitigation, and still found a way to reduce civilian casualties to historically low levels. And again, it was as many astute people pointed out. You think about the Afghanistan withdrawal, the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal, and the killing of a civilian, or as a humanitarian worker that we mentioned yesterday, and that was by this administration. So, you know, all of a sudden this I don't want to say holier than thou, that's not the right term, but for Blinken to go out and say, or try to suggest, that if what Hamas did is in any way, shape, or form near what Israel has been doing to try to cause the least civilian harm, it's, I don't know. This is to me, it's very disturbing. It's very troublesome. The White House did try to walk it back a little bit on the Situation Room on CNN. John Kirby was asked by Wolf Blitzer, you heard Secretary Blinken earlier today suggest, he warned that there's a real risk the way Israel is waging its war in Gaza right now is making it indistinguishable from Hamas. How close is Israel to that point? Can you imagine saying that Israel is nearly indistinguishable from Hamas in this? Why is the focus, and this is coming from the Democrat Party in general, not just this administration, but why is there not more focus on the barbaric nature of what Hamas did and starting this? Again, I know I said it yesterday, but to me it's very much the term that the left uses very often, which is victim blaming in this scenario. But I'll continue. Kirby responded to Wolf Blitzer by saying, well, it's difficult to say on a scale like that. We have to remember, Hamas, there was a ceasefire in place on the 6th of October. Hamas broke it. Mr. Sinwar chose to start the war. Mr. Sinwar and the Hamas fighters chose to bury themselves under hospitals and civilian infrastructure, use the innocent people of Gaza as human shields. They're increasingly placing innocent Palestinians at greater risk as well. I think we can't equate what they did on the 7th of October to the kinds of operations that Israel is conducting. That said, and we've been clear about this too, it's not just the right and responsibility of the IDF to go after Hamas, it's the way they do it that matters. And it's the way they've been doing it in recent weeks and months that has caused increasing frustration by us in terms of the civilian casualties, the damage to civilian infrastructures, and now the potential impact on humanitarian organizations being fearful of moving into Gaza. I guess it should come as no surprise. I did not realize this. Thank you for this comment. I'm surprised that our guest didn't mention it when I said you've got to come to the area. Eric Stabenow from the Glenn Miller Orchestra. Frank, you do realize the Glenn Miller Orchestra will be performing in Rochester May the 3rd at Theater at Innovation Square. I did not, or I would not have asked the question. They didn't send me a tour date. It was all about I should have looked up the tour dates. It was all about the album that is out today, Glenn Miller Orchestra, 80th anniversary of the Army Air Force Band. So thank you for that. No, I did not realize that. So I appreciate the update. That's why the viewers are the best here. I always like to be giving the best information here on the air. All right. Bernie Sanders. Do I have time? No, let's take a break on that note. As I mentioned, Don Berlew is going to be our guest at the top of the hour from Watkins Glen International. It's not too late to get your questions in for Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. We will talk about squatters to that viewer's point earlier on. We will also talk a few things about public safety in general. Actually, I'm not going to give too much away. We've got a lot to talk about. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselsen's Hot Tub. Hesselsen's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselsen's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselsen's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselsen's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
We are proud to serve. to serve our country, to serve our local communities, to wear the uniform, to be a soldier, to serve abroad when and where duty calls. We are ready to stand with our brothers and sisters to defend, to serve, to fight. We're always ready, we're always there. We are the New York Army National Guard.
Dale pues, vamos allá, muévete más loco, como solo tú lo sabes. Así es, pon las manos en la cabeza, sacúdete, sacúdete, mira.
We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We're back with Frankly Speaking. And yes, to the viewer's point, I just looked at their tour schedule. I'm not even sure how they could keep up, meaning the Glenn Miller Orchestra, how they can keep up with that schedule. They are playing Auburn. I think it was in June or July. They're going to be, yes, they are around the area. So maybe not the best question in that interview. But it was still, I think, a very nice interview. So I should have looked that up ahead of time. They play a lot. My goodness. I'm not even sure you could keep up with that breakneck pace. So Bernie Sanders said Hamas using civilians as shields is perhaps a part of the problem, but not the real problem. I think that is perhaps a part of the problem, but it's not the real problem. The real problem right now is we are looking, as I mentioned a moment ago, at massive starvation. That is not caused by Hamas. Well, isn't all kind of cause and effect? I mean, they're the ones, Hamas that started this. Now, yes, Israel's doing everything they can in this scenario, but this blame Israel first crowd, and think of Bernie Sanders, think of the support that he has, think of the, and we've had this conversation before, who knows what he could have done if the system wasn't rigged against him. And he would have been head-to-head with Trump. I don't know the answer. So that is a very large portion of the Democrat Party. Jen Psaki, who is, remember, an employee of MSNBC. Now, Ronna McDaniel needed to be thrown out immediately. Chuck Todd, so many others, Rachel Maddow, so many others coming out and saying it's just horrible. It's horrible, and as I said, that system is going to be used, in my opinion, or that was kind of the testing of the water of how they will say they don't have to give Trump coverage and like that. You've heard me say that. But Jen Psaki works at MSNBC, no issue there. Former White House press secretary. What was her argument? That she was, as if she never lied ever as a press secretary, she was making it sound as if she was always doing her job for the betterment of the country, something like that. Anyway, we don't need to get into that. I have to relitigate that. She said clearly the strategy that the United States is implementing at this point is not working to change the behavior of Prime Minister Netanyahu. It is not working to end the war. So obviously something has to change. I think it's pretty clear. They're discussing that, I think, in the White House, and I hope in the White House, in this situation, or at this point in time, the question of what that will be. And there's a number of allies of President Biden's in the Senate, Democratic senators and others, who've been pretty outspoken about the need for conditioning aid, at least as a consideration. That's obviously something that is being considered, should be considered. The question is, will that change the behavior, and what additional leverage needs to be put on Prime Minister Netanyahu at this point in time to change the trajectory? All right. And I mentioned this before we go to break. The CIA, that kind of comments, all those kind of selling out of Israel, comes on the heels of the CIA warning that Iran will attack Israel within 48 hours as revenge for the consulate strike. And this was released yesterday, so it's well less than 48 hours at this point. Israel killed 2 Iranian military commanders with a strike on Tehran's consulate in Syria, in the Syrian capital of Damascus, Iran vowed that it would take revenge for the attack, and now foreign media is reporting that U.S. intelligence is fearful of an attack on Israel. Tehran is said to be planning a combined attack with a rain of drones and missiles fired from its bases at strategic locations inside Israel. This comes after U.S. officials raised fear that the Israeli strike could lead to a wider war in the Middle East. And then we talked about this yesterday, the real fear of what if China and Russia get involved. Could this type of attack be the beginning of World War III? Because we also heard that Iran talks of, at least rumors of perhaps attacks in the UK as well. And we know where Russia and China stand and who they would support in that situation. So that's a quick update. When we come back, I'm going to tell you and wrap up this hour with this piece by John Spencer that I quickly kind of acknowledged. By the way, did you see Texas Governor Greg Abbott was in New York City? I know I mentioned it at one point on the program, but he was in there. He was in New York City yesterday, and he said he would continue to bus migrants out of Texas until, quote, we get a new president. I love this. Are we gonna have time for this? I don't. Yeah, I'm gonna bring this up, and then we'll talk about Israel one last. Well, no, let's talk about Israel first. The piece is called "Israel's Defense Forces Work to Protect Civilians, Not Kill Them." The world mourns the tragic loss of Central Kitchen workers in Gaza this week. The investigation into the event is ongoing, but we do know Israel took immediate responsibility, initiated a national-level investigation, and admitted the grave error very quickly. This is what a law-abiding, moral, ethical military force does, even when they make mistakes in the fog and friction of urban combat. But despite the tragic event, the overwhelming narrative of Israel's conduct in the war against Hamas and Gaza has been negative, when in fact it has taken extraordinary measures to follow international humanitarian law and prevent civilian casualties and civilian harm. As John Kirby, White House National Security Communications Advisor, emphasized in a press conference, the State Department has, quote, not found any incidents where the Israelis have violated international humanitarian law. And then he goes and gives a history of the painstaking work that they do to avoid these losses. It's about a 5 pages piece. I would highly recommend it. It's at the New York Post. John Spencer is the chair of urban warfare studies at the Modern War Institute at West Point, a co-director of MWI's Urban Warfare Project, and host of the Urban Warfare Project podcast. He served for 25 years as an infantry soldier, which included 2 combat tours in Iraq. This is what he said at the end. Those calling for Israel to find an alternative to inflicting civilian casualties to lower amounts, like 0, should be honest. This alternative would leave the Israeli hostages in captivity and allow Hamas to survive. The alternative to a nation's survival cannot be a path to extinction. What a great point by John Spencer. Keep those comments and questions coming in. Oh, we got a couple waves here. I see some things here quickly for Phil. I'll read those when we come back or save them for Phil, so stay with us. Why did I move my mic? Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
It's time to stock up on your favorite New York wines at GCP Discount Liquors and Wines in Horseheads. GCP Discount Liquors and Wines has the largest selection of Finger Lakes wines in the Southern Tier, all under one roof. Whether you're looking for Lakewood, Wagner, Wise, or Haslett 1852 Vineyards, GCP Discount Liquors and Wines is your convenient one-stop shop for these great wineries and more, all at the area's lowest prices. Shop GCP Discount Liquors and Wines in Horseheads, the best in service, selection, and price.
Friends have been friends about Colonial Penn guaranteed acceptance whole life insurance for more than 50 years, and with good reason. If you're between the age of 50 and 85, it's a sure thing. Your acceptance is guaranteed because full benefits are not paid in the first 2 years. And the price? Options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. With Colonial Penn, your rate is another sure thing. It will never increase. And you should know this coverage can last a lifetime.
Call today, 1-800-475-1050.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. So, I have to mention these last stories, and then coming up at the top of the hour, we'll hear from Don Berlew from Watkins Glen International, then Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. First, a comment from a viewer, and I thought this was a good point. In this country, everyone has rights, even squatters. But rights should not include being allowed to stay in and in some cases destroy homes that do not belong to them. There apparently isn't a difference between renters and squatters in the eyes of the laws these days. I think that's a very good point. Okay, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, quickly. So he said he'll stop busing migrants to New York. He will not stop until we get a new president. He was at a annual gala, a Republican annual gala in New York. The governor said he decided to start busing migrants out of Texas after local officials expressed concern with the number of migrants that were being apprehended at the border, only to be dropped off in their communities by federal authorities. Abbott claimed that at first the plan was only to bus migrants to Washington because neither Joe Biden nor the border czar, meaning Kamala Harris, had actually been to the border to see the chaos and cost. And so my thought process was, if they're not going to come to the border, we're going to take them, the border to them. The governor claimed that he expanded the busing program to include New York City only after receiving criticism from Mayor Eric Adams. Quite literally out of nowhere, Eric Adams starts criticizing me for sending them to New York City, Abbott recalled. We made clear by contacting his office, we're not sending them to New York. We issued press releases to the press saying we're not sending migrants to New York. That's Joe Biden sending them to New York. This is what I like. Abbott claimed that when criticism from New York City officials wouldn't stop, he decided that, quote, if I'm going to get the criticism, I want to get the credit. And thus began the busing of illegal immigrants to the sanctuary city of New York City. All right, that would have been a fun event to attend in the city. Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Thank you for all these comments coming in. I really appreciate it. Yes, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano will be coming up in just a little bit. We have Don Berlew before that at the top of the hour. Oh, I got to show you this. Don Berlew, she's going to be right at the top of the hour. She's Watkins Glen International. Let me see if I can show you this. Look at the cookies they brought me. Isn't that nice? I'm going to have a cookie during the break. Watkins Glen International sugar cookie. So I appreciate that. Also, I wanted to quickly remind you, because people were asking, yesterday we had Joe on the program from the Crystal Chords. Yes, that event is coming up tomorrow. The Crystal Chords and the Mark Twain Chorus presents I've Got the Music in Me. Do not miss this event. They team together, do a great job. Starts at 7 p.m. and it is at the Clemens Center. You can find out more at clemenscenter.org. And thank you to Joe for being on the program yesterday. All right, I think that covers all of our bases. In the next hour, Don Berlew, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. As you know, unless you're new to the program, it is always fine to text questions during our broadcast as well. I will try my best to ask the questions to Phil as we go. It doesn't always work out just because of time, and we have so much to cover. But I will make the attempt anyway. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. I just can't believe anyone can think this is okay and reality. Yes, the squatters issue is really, I'm not going to say the talk of the town because that's thrown around so often, but I can't believe how many conversations I've had about it outside of this program because it's very frustrating, especially in an area where people do travel in the winter, the snowbirds, or they do have maybe lake property they don't use in the winter. I'm sure there's a lot of very concerned people out there. So that's why we're going to talk to the Assemblyman about that when we come back. But first, Don Berlew. So stay with us, and please feel free to contact us at any time, even after the program. I love to hear from you. This has been the first full week of 2-hour shows. Stay with us. 1 hour left together here on Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio, and we'll be right back after this quick commercial break, and Don Berlew will be our guest.
The bathroom of your dreams is only a phone call away with BCI Bath and Shower. We can make your ordinary bath and shower extraordinary. This is not a cookie-cutter design. This is a complete custom build that will fit your every need. It's never been easier or more affordable than right now to get the bathroom of your dreams. We have the best monthly programs in the industry with payments as low as $99 per month or no payments, no interest for 18 months with approved credit. The hardest part of your new bathroom is gutting and building the tub and shower. If your bathing area is old, there could be damage behind the walls and possible mold and mildew, which can be a serious safety issue. At BCI, we don't cover a problem, we fix it. Call now to get a never clean glass treated door with a no-track system at half off for the first 50 callers. Factory trained, certified installers made in the USA and discounts for seniors and military. Call 800-704-1798. That's 800-704-1798.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We're broadcasting from the Hesselson studio. First and foremost, I have to say congratulations.
Thank you.
This has got to be exciting for you. What does it mean to be the first woman to be president of such a historic course?
It's an honor.
Yeah.
It's an honor to be the first woman president of WGI, to join the team at the track, as well as to join the NASCAR family.
Has it been a pretty smooth transition?
It has. I sunset my Corning career and then started the NASCAR career the next day.
Oh, did you really?
I did. Crazy, right?
Not even a 2-week notice.
No. So it took some planning, but all the stars lined up, and it's just been a great transition.
Well, it seems kind of, with your background, it seems like a perfect fit. Does it feel that way?
It does.
Yeah.
It does. I had a great, I still have a great network. Worked with a lot of people that we still work with at the track, so it made a nice transition. And everybody from, the town to the agencies we work on, everybody was just really open and willing to step up and start working.
Yeah. Was this something you ever thought would be a possibility? Was this always kind of in the back of your mind?
No, it wasn't. No. I was very settled in my career, had a great career at Corning.
Of course.
And when the position came open, it's kind of more like, wow, that doesn't happen very often.
No, as we've seen.
To track president roles open up. And so it was more of, okay, we need to fill it because it's such a huge, economic driver and tourism attraction for the community. So how do we do that? And really just went into that mode.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was like, maybe this will be.
So you're pretty calm under pressure then, huh? Because it's going to get crazy.
I think so.
Good. Okay, good.
I have confidence.
Yes, no, I'm sure you will. Tell us about, this is opening weekend, so this must be extra special for you in a way, is it?
It is.
Yeah. Tell us about the weekend.
So we're starting on Friday at like 1 o'clock. We're inviting the Watkins Glen Auto Tech students up to spend some time with us.
What a good idea.
Some track laps and spend some time with the team at the track to just understand what's out there in the auto industry, the racing industry from that perspective, as well as to take some laps on the track. Then we're going to move into pace car rides, and our event starts at 5 o'clock from 5 to 7 with Senator O'Mara. And
of course.
Assemblyman Palmisano will be there with us, and then Congressman Langworthy's office will be represented. And then a lot of the businesses will be attending, and just they want to hear what's happening at the track, so we'll be unveiling our schedule for the year and some new events that we're going to unveil, which will be pretty exciting.
Okay.
So stay tuned.
So I guess I can't ask that.
No, I can't let it out.
Okay. Everybody has to attend. That's why.
That's right.
One thing I wanted to mention over the weekend, and I saw it in the press release, that people will have an opportunity to drive their vehicles around the track. Is that correct? And it goes to a great cause. A couple of great causes.
It does. We're actually splitting it between the Beaver Dams Fire Department, Montour Falls Fire Department, and the Schuyler County K-9 unit, and the Race Foundation, which is local, stays local for the Watkins Glen area. And then at the end of the year, that piece of it, our team will determine what non-for-profits will get those contributions.
Well, and that goes kind of back to your previous job. Watkins Glen International is so community-minded, and I think it's always had that reputation. So that must be someplace that you fall right into place.
I do. So? I describe it as that's just part of my fabric.
Right.
It is being a community champion and trying to knit everybody together for the greater good.
Now, I know when people think Watkins Glen, it's a whole summer's worth of events, but they do think about the big NASCAR race. How special is it? What's the vibe, to sound like a hippie, but what's the vibe around the office, seeing that you're going to be a part of the playoffs for the first time in history?
So everybody's pretty excited. You know, we've been planning for that since last year's
Yeah.
event, and you know, we start out with opening weekend, and then we run right into our IMSA weekend, the end of June, Finger Lakes Wine Festival, and then we have a little bit of a big event break before our series race in September. But we're excited about it. You know, it's extending the tourism season for everybody, and it gives us a little extra time for planning. We have some new fan experiences planned for IMSA weekend and our Cup weekend. So we're excited about it.
You know what? I'm kind of curious about this one. Most people, when they retire, they at least want the summer off, right? You wanted the opposite? Is that how that is? You really dislike summer? You want to be busy the whole summer, and then winter, you want to be good.
Yeah, well, you know, if you love your job, you don't need a vacation,
okay.
right?
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Just before we go, and you don't have to give anything away, but when you look at your upcoming tenure as president of the track, what would you like to see done? What would you like your legacy to be? They would ask a president.
That the track is truly embedded in the community, and that everybody in the community sees it as someplace that they want to take part in, they want to participate, and that the track is given back to the community.
That's nice. Well, thanks so much for doing this morning. I know you're very busy, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Good luck this weekend. All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselsen's Hot Tub. Hesselsen's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselsen's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselsen's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselsen's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
What's up, guys? What I'm about to show you is going to change the way you shave your head forever.
You can shave your head in 90 seconds or less with no cuts or nicks.
Introducing Remington's new and improved Balder Boss. With increased flex and 5 dual-track floating head design, get over 60% more head coverage for a faster, closer shave and skin-close results. And only through this exclusive TV offer, now you can try it in your home for 30 days for just $14.99. Balder Boss is the fast, easy, safe way to shave your head, wet or dry, in 90 seconds or less, without nicks or cuts.
No nicks, no scrapes. Fit in the palm of my hand, and the results were amazing.
The 360-degree pivoting neck contours closely around your head curves for maximum contact, anytime, anywhere, in 90 seconds or less. With exclusive Wet Tech technology, shave in the shower, or with any foam or gel. Japanese-grade steel blades and turbo power plow through the thickest of hair, yet gentle enough it won't irritate skin. With pure lithium power that lasts up to an incredible 60 minutes. That's like 1 full month of use without a recharge. Then easily rinses clean. There's even a pop-up trimmer to complete your perfect groom. Now you can try the Remington Balder Boss in your home for 30 days for just $14.99. But wait, order now and we'll ship it to you absolutely free. You can also get our ear, nose, and brow trimmer for the ultimate groom. Free. Just pay separate processing and handling. Every Balder Boss comes with a 5-year limited warranty where durability is guaranteed, plus a 100% satisfaction guarantee. If you don't absolutely love it, send it back, but keep the trimmer as our gift just for trying.
I got a clean, nice, smooth shave in under 90 seconds. No nicks, no cuts.
So order now.
We passed a resolution to proclaim April as Organ and Tissue Donor Awareness Month in conjunction with National Donate Life Month. It's important because we want to encourage and promote organ donation, and the statistics are staggering. Right now in New York State, we have nearly 8,000 New Yorkers waiting for an organ transplant. 1,100 have been waiting for more than 5 years. There are 52 registries across this state and territories. We are 50 out of 52, only ahead of Puerto Rico and New Jersey. The national organ donation rate is 64%, but New York is number 50 at 47%. Last year we lost nearly 400 New Yorkers waiting for a life-saving organ transplant. We can and we must do better. But the most important statistic for people listening to know is that one person who donates at the time of their death can save up to 8 lives and impact the lives of 75 others through organ donation. So sign up to be an organ donor today and let's save lives.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. We thought we'd play that little clip for you to begin the program because we have in the studio Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, Frank. Good to be with you.
Thanks so much for being on. So I've got to say this morning, well, first of all, congratulations on the April 8th deadline move.
All right.
We're going to talk.
And amazing how this
Wait, I heard there was that article from Politico that said people wanted in Albany to take the day off for the eclipse, and yet that's the deadline date now? That doesn't sound well.
Yeah,
like a good idea.
It's interesting how Albany works.
Anyway.
I could do a whole show on that.
I'm sure. We'll talk about maybe a little bit about the budget. But first, I've received so many comments this morning. I'm going to try to kind of paraphrase them all down to one question. Let's talk about squatters and why this has become such an issue. And first and foremost, just so people are aware, how long does a squatter need to be in your home? We had one person say, I'm away sometimes in the winter, or, people have lakefront property that they're not in all the time. How long does a squatter need to be there before it's theirs?
They're deemed a tenant.
Yeah.
30 days. And it's ridiculous. I mean, this is a problem that we've seen over and over again. 2 high-profile cases that recently came to light in New York City was one when one individual found out that people were squatting in her home.
Yeah.
She came in and changed the locks, and she got walked away in cuffs.
Isn't that amazing?
How that makes sense.
That's what makes people so frustrated about this. And I was mentioning it on the show. It's not just on this program. You can't believe how many people have talked to me on the street just saying, what is going on with this?
And you think about the other high-profile issues. There's one individual came back from Spain, came back to the apartment, I think, from her mother passing away, and found 2 squatters in there. They murdered her.
It's horrible.
They stuffed her in a duffel bag. I mean, the lawlessness, the lack of respect, it's the criminal justice policies all coming to fruition. I mean, the other story I saw this week on the news when I was in Albany, there were 8 migrants. So you have the legal migrant situation come into play. They were squatting in the apartment, and the individual was chased in there. They found a firearm on the individual. 8 people in there, like a 7-year-old kid.
Yeah.
They went and they were released because of the bail laws, and obviously the fact that we're basically a sanctuary state because of the executive order that's in place in New York City being a sanctuary city, that law enforcement are prohibited from cooperating and sharing information with federal ICE officials on immigration issues. So these individuals illegally occupied the apartment. They had firearms on them.
Unbelievable.
Here illegally, and then released. I mean, so it's like a perfect storm of evil and lawlessness.
Yeah. Now, is this you're focused on New York, obviously. Is this an issue nationwide, or are we just the ones that have ridiculous laws?
I think there's some problems with the squatting nationwide, but I mean, obviously, I focus on New York.
Yeah.
And it's not just New York City. We had a press conference a couple weeks ago on this issue. My colleague Jake Blumenkrantz from Long Island has brought this bill forward. He's been on national news talking about it. But a colleague of mine, David DiPietro from Western New York, talked about him being a landlord as well. Had businesses and owned houses and fixed them up and sold them. But he's been worried about that. But he had a friend, someone in the business that had someone squat in his place.
That's amazing.
And it took him over a year and a half to get the individual removed. And just as before the individual was supposed to get removed, and they went in there, the individual did $90,000+ worth of damage to the property. I mean, this is about private property owner rights. I mean, once you own a property, you should own it, period.
It's your castle, right? Your house is your castle.
You shouldn't have to worry about someone coming in there and camping out in there and having legal rights more than you.
Right.
And, the Democrats in Albany, they're trying to do more protections for tenants. They're talking about doing that in the budget, tenant protections. But what about private property owner protections? So this is kind of just spins off on the criminal justice policies, the lawlessness. They don't want penalties for anything. This week we're talking about after the tragic shooting of the NYPD officer
Jonathan
Diller.
Yes.
That when just a couple of days after that, Speaker Hasty, who I have respect for, made a comment that said that penalties don't deter crimes. Well, I think they do, but
history proves.
Nevertheless, there should be accountability and repercussions for actions that people take, and those are the types of things we need to look at.
And we're going to talk more about public safety here in just a moment, but Michael Goodwin had a good piece in the New York Post, and he said about Hasty's comment, he said, and I mentioned this with Joe Semplinsky yesterday, but he said, we can all think we're honest, but if there was no penalty for robbing a bank, we may all rob a bank. Right. And I mean, that's really the mindset. If penalties don't work, increase penalties, the history of the world proves the opposite. But anyway, I don't want to get into a tangent there, but I do want to go back to squatters because I think it's important. In our area, like I said, there's so many people that go away for the winter. They have so 30 days, it would be easy.
Very easy.
Do you think, and I had this question from a viewer, and I'm going to paraphrase it. Do you think, especially with the sanctuary city laws in New York City, we've seen that TikTok star who's pushing how to basically manipulate the system to become a squatter? Doesn't that just create more of a perfect storm when we talk about our immigration policies and these squatter issues?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly. I was trying to give the example.
Yeah.
Obviously, what you saw in New York City.
Right.
8 illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
One was being chased by the law enforcement. They chased him into this bottom basement apartment. They found 8 people in there, firearms in there.
Yeah.
So the individuals came over here illegally, went to a sanctuary city where the law enforcement aren't permitted to cooperate with federal ICE officials. The individual was squatting in the apartment, so there's another one, and then had illegal firearms, and then was released. Basically, they were saying they were being released back to the public, and figured they were probably going to go right back to that place because then they just going to camp right out. And after 30 days, you basically have to go to civil court. Right. There can't be law enforcement involved, and it could take a year to 2 years to get those individuals removed. I mean, during COVID, this kind of permeated more during COVID. You remember, because people didn't have to pay rent, and they couldn't kick them out. And it's tragic. Yeah. I mean, it's really tragic what's going on. Private property owner rights is one of the tenets of a free society.
Exactly.
Of a democratic society. But what they're doing is, and there are unfortunately some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, the far left, that they don't believe in personal property rights. They think the government should own everything and everything should be shared. And people share out of the goodness of their heart, but you shouldn't be forced doing. I mean, this is mind-blowing to me.
It really is.
It's just one thing after another.
And that's everybody's mindset has been that. When I talked to, I have not talked to one person who said, well, I can see the other side to it. Do you understand? Right. I mean, it's one of those.
Not on that.
Yeah.
And I've made the issue that we should try every avenue we can to bring this issue up during the budget, because when they bring up a housing bill, why not attach this piece of legislation to it as an amendment? We refer to it as a hostile amendment, to say, hey, listen, have the majorities vote on this. Why would anyone vote against this law? That would basically create and not take a squatter out of the law from a tenant perspective and say, call it for what it is, basically criminal trespass, and make it a felony because you're basically seizing someone's property.
We received a comment, lawlessness equals chaos, and chaos is our destruction. That's true. Also, we received a lot after you sent out the release about that bill that you support, a lot of thank yous and a lot of, this is a no-brainer. Have you seen a lot of bipartisan support for this, or is it really a kind of a partisan issue at this point?
I know, I think it's probably more partisan, but I know from talking to Jake Blumenkrantz, the sponsor of the bill, there are Democrats that support the bill. There was supposed to be a Democrat to come to the press conference. They didn't make it, but so I think there's some bipartisan support for this legislation. It's just a matter, I don't hear many of them speaking out on it. I would think especially in upstate areas or anywhere. I mean, this makes no sense.
From a PR standpoint, I don't understand how you could get up there and defend that you are looking out for the squatters over the property owners. I really don't.
It doesn't make sense. I mean, it's common sense that we should be looking out for the property owners. Unfortunately, in New York State, common sense doesn't always prevail on some of the policies that are advanced.
Especially when it comes to things like this one, criminal, because it is criminal
activity. And like you said, like the viewer said, like we talked about, it's really like a perfect storm of integration of lawlessness and terrible illegal policies, the illegal immigration, to the squatting, to the cashless bail, not holding people accountable. And that's what it is. It's like the other viewers said, this lawlessness. There's a lack of respect for the law. There's no repercussions. There's no penalties. People feel they can do whatever they want, and they're not going to go to jail. Remember the illegal migrants who attacked the police officers? Yeah. They went into court and they walked out, and then they were flicking off the camera on their way out the door. Yeah. What does that say? And what does that send as a message? I mean, it's just going to make New York City and New York State more of a welcoming mat for illegal immigration, for criminals. Because
and when you start giving debit cards, debit cards
with money on them.
I know I've said this on the show numerous times, but someone that I went to college with, not political at all, when they're texting me, not watching the show, obviously, texting me, go, are you guys really giving away debit cards to people that came here illegally?
They're
yeah.
giving away
Well,
debit
we're
cards in
not, but New York City is. Yeah.
I mean, the other issue, because we talked about, illegal immigrants and squatting. What about illegal immigrants and murder? I mean, the individual from Venezuela who crossed the border illegally was released, came to New York, committed a crime, got arrested. The sanctuary city, sanctuary state status did not allow for those law enforcement to cooperate with federal ICE officials. Released that individual. Where did that individual go? I went down to Georgia and killed Lake and Ryan.
Exactly. I mean, that's why these and they always say it's perception, right, Phil? I mean, that's Eric Adams and all these perception. It's a perception problem. No, it's not about the media covering it. Is not the problem.
Right.
The problem are the laws, right?
So true.
Yeah. Well, let's take our first short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, our guest, as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Stay with us.
Looks like y'all got a lot of stuff here in your water.
You're never gonna believe it, but this can filter up to 60 different contaminants from your water.
It's all about cleaner drinking water.
Dude, that's good water.
And that's good water.
Now that's good water.
That's good water, eh?
No matter where you live, there's a Culligan water expert nearby. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
What do when your tire goes flat and there's no air anywhere to fix that? You reach for Bullseye Pro, the smarter, faster, hands-free way to fill it up with air. Bullseye Pro is equipped with a rechargeable lithium-ion power plant. So fast, so strong, and so convenient. It's like putting the power of an air compressor in the palm of your hand. Look, you can inflate all 4 tires of your car on a single charge, or inflate a bag full of soccer balls at practice. Bullseye Pro is so advanced, it has a built-in smart pressure digital sensor that gauges and automatically stops when the set tire pressure is reached. Plus, it can be 100% hands-free. You simply set the target pressure and walk away, keeping you out of harm's way. Bullseye Pro is lightweight, durable, and powerful enough to inflate this massive monster truck tire. Plus, it has 4 ultra-bright LED lights to safely inflate at night. Bullseye Pro comes with 3 custom air nozzles on board, so you can easily inflate pool toys, exercise balls, and more. Forget driving to the gas station. Bullseye Pro is your anywhere, anytime inflation station. Call or go online now and get the complete Bullseye Pro inflation system, all for the factory direct price of just $79.99. It comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee. Plus, we'll ship your entire order free. That's right, free shipping. But to really inflate this offer, we'll give you a 50% discount on a second one. You get it all. An incredible value for one low price. Call or go online to order now.
To order, call 1-800-974-9753 or go to getbullseyepro.com. So call 1-800-974-9753. That's 1-800-974-9753 or order online at getbullseyepro.com. Order now.
We are back with Frankly Speaking. There's our beautiful view of Marcus Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Joining me in that studio, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Phil, just a couple quick comments. First, how do you like this? You're heads and shoulders above the run-of-the-mill politicians who are mostly into campaigning for a job with pay and benefits rather than for public service. That's nice. Nice comment.
Yes.
You don't like when I read the nice comments. You get all humble.
Thank you. That's very kind. I appreciate it.
Also, I forgot to mention right at the beginning, we had Dawn Berlew on today. She says you're going to be at the track.
I am going to be at the track.
That sounds like it's going to be fun.
It's going to be their opening weekend. And actually, we're going to present Watkins Glen International. Last year was their 75th anniversary. Yeah. So we were able to collaborate that last year. So we're going to do a presentation at the track to them for their opening day weekend.
Oh, that's cool. Well, now let's go on to something really troubling. You know, a lot of these times when I read a story on here, it is New York City or something from the Post, and then we start to hear about some of this happening here, specifically retail theft, and Hasty saying, the penalties don't do anything, and then something hits so close to home that I think it jars a lot of people awake, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As we all know, it's been in the news. Chemung County Sheriff Investigator Michael Fetke He was working in collaboration with the state police on a retail theft operation, because this is another one of the effects of the dangerous criminal justice policies or lack thereof that have been advocated by my colleagues in Albany on the other side of the aisle. So, unfortunately, obviously, he was in pursuit, and then the getaway driver ran him all over, and then took a sharp turn, and he took the brunt of it, and fractured his skull, brain bleed. I mean, there's critical conditions still today. I mean, first, our thoughts and prayers go out to the entire family, to the Chemung County Sheriff's Department, and all law enforcement who are just so concerned. But this is, unfortunately, this is what we continue to see, whether it's Investigator Thetke right here close to home, or Officer Diller down in New York City. I mean, it's just one thing after another, and it's just hard to understand. And why shouldn't there be? I mean, the governor's talking about doing more criminal justice, like a retail theft, and then you get Carl Hasty, after Officer Diller was murdered, saying the penalties don't matter, they don't deter crime, but there needs to be penalties. And this individual who committed this crime, I mean, this retail theft is really persistent. It's growing, so something needs to be done. But it's all the policies over and over again. And I think back to the when you talk about the criminal justice, the words, if I could read, because I don't want to misspell them, of the widow of the fallen NYPD officer Jonathan Diller. She said, "How many more police officers and their families will have to make the ultimate sacrifice before the city protects them?" There should be no more. No more, period. And I just think, when you think about those brave men and women who put on that uniform each and every day to keep us safe, they don't know when they go to work if they're going to come home. They don't. I'm sure Investigator Thetke, he wasn't expecting something like that, but they have to prepare for that. And it's just, that's what our law enforcement does for us each and every day, and we need to respect them and show your appreciation. If you see a man and woman in law enforcement, please say thank you for your service, thank you for protecting us. And you've seen the policies that have been implemented in the lack of respect, the defund the police movements and things of that nature. Some of them want to have social workers on the street, not law enforcement. So, obviously what we try to do is we put forth a really aggressive package. This week we had law enforcement join us at the state capitol. And one of the initial things we talked about that we have to revisit again and have to change is really the number one issue, I think, is with the bail, because it's the policies, bail reform, raise the age, the parole reforms that they're trying to push, the parole board releasing murderers, cop killers back onto the streets, clean slate. The scales of justice have tipped in favor of criminals over the public safety, over the safety of our law enforcement, over the interests of crime victims and their families. And it's really long past due that the state of New York, the executive, my colleagues, the progressive socialists in the legislature, start to put the interests and safety of the public, of law enforcement, of crime victims and their family, over the interests of dangerous criminals who are repeat violent offenders. I mean, it makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
And we can start by implementing part of the things we talked about was one, allowing judicial discretion. We are now the only state in the country that does not allow the judge to consider the dangerousness of an individual when dealing with parole. So all these individuals who could be a danger to the community, that can't be a considering factor. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Did you ever imagine when we first started talking about bail reform and how bad this would be, that it would not just bail reform itself be this bad? We knew that, but how bad it would get in this state when it came to it seems like every time you read about some new reform, it's again tying the hands of the police officers and coddling the criminals.
That's what it is. You're taking away tools and resources from our law enforcement on the street, just like they're taking away tools and resources from our law enforcement working in our correctional facilities. Taking away tools like allowing them, our corrections officers, to segregate the most dangerous inmates from the rest of the general population. And you see the assaults spiking on staff, inmate on staff assaults, inmate on inmate assaults are spiking. So there's lawlessness inside our correctional facilities because of the lack of respect for law enforcement inside there. There's lack of respect and lawlessness on our streets because of the policies that continue to be put in place in advance that really continue to put the favor in the side of the criminal versus our public safety, our law enforcement, and our crime victims. And it doesn't make any sense to me. It's long past due that we change that paradigm. But we have to keep speaking out. We have to keep speaking out. But the words of Officer Diller's wife ring true. How many more? And one is too many. There should be no more. That's what we said. How about no more? How about let's showing them we have their backs? And there's so many things we could do. You know, if you murder a police officer, you should be in jail for the rest of your life without any consideration of parole. We have murderers, cop killers who have been released by the parole board. I mean, if you or have mandatory life without parole, institute the death penalty for cop killers. You know, 3 strikes and you're in. If you have 3 violent felonies, you know, then you can be in prison for the rest of your life. Because obviously, if you're doing that, you have no respect for the society, you have no respect for public safety, you have no respect for law enforcement or families and crime victims, because it's all about you. So there's a whole host of reforms that we put out. But then it just goes back, you know, the speaker's word: penalties don't deter crime. But again, as my one colleague who I served with, Mike Riley, he's a former NYPD officer. You know, obviously he's really emotionally because of that connection. And he said, "This is enough's enough. We have to stop this. Where's our priorities?" So I mean,
can you imagine that Governor Hochul? I saw a piece in Politico basically trying to convince us that Governor Hochul is tough on crime. We just haven't been able to see it.
Right, and I'm sorry I didn't mean to yell there.
No, I listen. I get it.
But at the press conference we had this week, the reporter asked, and our leader Will Barkley, they asked the question. She goes, she talks a big game, but when push comes to shove, when it comes to action, she doesn't do it.
It's not there.
She has the bully pulpit when it comes to this budget. She can implement things through the budget process. She has total control. She could force the issue on this matter, because even the bail reform that she pushed forward, it was tinkering around edges. It did nothing. She used to say there is going to give judges discretion no matter what. And she keeps trying to say judges need to go back for training. Are you kidding me? They can't. They have to follow the law. They know the law better than you, Governor.
100%.
So, I mean, and it's just things like that. So we're saying, Governor, use the bully pulpit. If you want changes to retail theft, for assaulting a retail worker, then push it through the budget. You know, push the funding through the budget for them. So they can't do that. If you want to protect the public, let's implement some of these policies. But number one, again, is allow judges to consider the dangerousness they're under. So she can talk all she wants, and action speaks louder than words.
And you think about that with retail workers. I mean, retail workers that now literally go to work fearing for their life and their safety.
Absolutely. I mean, you just don't know.
No.
I mean, it's becoming one of those things because the criminals, they don't care.
No.
They have lack of
That's very clear.
It's all about them, and if they have to hurt someone, I always go back to the other day. Remember the person who attacked the bodega owner, and he defended himself and killed him. They were going to charge him initially. Alvin Bragg was going to charge him initially. Now I see the obviously the veteran who helped people on the subway who's under arrest and on jury. I mean, what are they doing? I mean, I don't know.
You have people saying, why is no one helping when they see these disgusting things happening on the subway? Why would you?
Right.
I mean, you're going to be the one that's charged trying to protect others?
It's always, it's without doubt, like I said before, the scales of justice have slanted dramatically in favor of criminals over the safety and interests of the public, safety and interests of law enforcement, safety and interests of crime victims and their family. And it's just people don't feel safe.
No.
It's not only they don't feel safe, they aren't safe. That's the thing. I mean, it's one thing to feel safe, but you can feel safe, but they're not safe. And it's happening in communities all across our state. And you have quality of life issues. I mean, we're trying to skip. You got the sticker store issues, which is the people basically thumbing their nose at the law,
laughing.
Yeah, and this is another issue the governor could push on. You know, she talked about in her budget, which the majorities didn't put in their one houses. Let law enforcement go in and shut these shops down, because right now the only one who can shut them down is the Office of Cannabis Management, which is useless. So why not empower our law enforcement more and more? But it's just this anti law enforcement, defund the police. It's one thing after another, and these policies are. I mean, it's very, very frustrating.
But who is that playing to, Phil? I mean, I know you're right. You're 100% right. But even the politicians in a kind of a far left district, those districts are still struggling with the crime. People still have to live there. So who are they playing to? It's like the one piece said about Hasty. Does he believe his constituents are criminals? I mean, because who does it play to?
Yeah, you're right. Because I think those individuals in the city. I watch the news. You see, they're interviewing the people in the city. You got to do something. You see the the people, whether it's in New York, whether it's in Chicago, talking about the legal migrant issue, how they're getting favoritism more than our regular citizens. I mean, I don't know who they're appealing to, Frank. I wish I knew. But it's basically being they're the Democratic Party of today. I don't want to sound like it's a Democrat thing, but it is.
You got to look at who's
one-party
supporting
control
what.
in New York State. But I have friends and family members who are Democrat. The Democratic Party in Albany, the Democratic Party today in New York State is not the Democratic Party of our parents and our grandparents who are, blue-collar workers, union supporters, things like that. It has been the Democratic Party in New York State has been totally co-opted by the AOC leftist socialist wing. And the fact that there is a group called the Democratic Socialists of America, the DSA, self-proclaimed, proud to admit Democratic socialists. 10 years ago, you would never hear of a Democrat talk like that. But now they talk about that all the time, and they're proud of it. And they're taking out their own. They're primarying members of the Assembly and the Senate who they don't consider socialists or progressive enough. I'll give you one perfect example. Joe Lento. He was in the Assembly for 30 plus years. He was the chairman of the Codes Committee. He was the architect, or basically the author, and defended the SAFE Act. He was on the floor and defended the bail reform. He did that. I guess he wasn't progressive or socialist enough, so they took him out. So they're eating their own, and that's what they continue to do. So
everybody's scared. So they're running scared.
The speaker, he has to have a majority. I think he's got to balance it out, and unfortunately, some of these policies, he's kowtowing more to the socialist left than he is to the moderate middle. And Governor Hochul, the same thing. I use an example. I'm totally pivoting here on energy. She said that I'm for lower energy costs and helping make it more affordable, but she's not. But I even question the public service, the president of NYSERDA, Doreen Harris, the co-architect of the Climate Action Council plan. Because last year, after the budget was presented, her and Basil Sagels were out on the airwaves saying we need to make changes to the CLCPA on how emissions are measured. Because in the CLCPA we passed in 2019, it uses a 20-year measurement for emissions. And they came out, they did their own analysis, said we need to change it to 100 years. If we don't change it to 100 years, and by the way, every state in the country uses 100 years. The U.S. uses 100 years. International code uses 100 years. If we don't change it to 100 years, prices at the pump for New Yorkers will increase, by their own numbers, will increase 63 cents a gallon, and natural gas home heating costs will increase 79% if we don't change it to 100 years. If we change it to 100 years, it's still going to go up. It's going to go up about like 40% of that. And so I brought that up to her. Does the governor support this this increase, or if not, why didn't she put this in her budget? And she tried to go on, well, the governor's going to do this. I don't want to hear what the governor's going to do. Does she support it, and why didn't she put it in her budget? She wouldn't do it. And the answer is plain and simple, and I wish I would have said this at the hearing. The governor did not put it in her budget, number one, because she did not have the backbone to stand up to the environmental advocates, the radical environmentalists, and the socialist progressives in the legislature who didn't want to do it. So she said, okay, to New York families, farmers, small businesses, and manufacturers, seniors, sorry, I don't have the backbone to stand up to them. Although she'll talk it, but when push comes to shove, actions speak louder than words, whether it's energy policy, whether it's criminal justice policy. And time again, this governor has shown she does not have the backbone to stand up to the socialist progressive left and the advocates who push some of these issues.
We got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
New vehicles are in-house and on display, with more on the way. If you're in the market for a new vehicle, visit Elm Chevrolet. Search Elm Chevrolet's entire new vehicle inventory at elmchevrolet.com. Together, let's drive.
Attention Medicare beneficiaries. This is an important message for people on Medicare. Today we are talking about Medicare Advantage plans. If you're new to Medicare, moving or losing coverage, and don't have a Medicare Advantage Part C plan, call now because there may be a Medicare Part C plan with additional benefits available in your zip code. You can call now to find out if you're eligible to enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan with additional benefits. Just call 800-351-6177 and a licensed insurance agent can look up your eligibility and plan options options and see if you're eligible to enroll in a Medicare Part C plan that could save money or include additional benefits. Don't wait. You are not automatically enrolled in a Part C plan with additional benefits. If you're new to Medicare, moving or losing coverage, call for your free, no-obligation Medicare benefits review. You won't know what plan options are available to you unless you call, so call now. The call is free. Call 800-351-6177. 800-351-6177.
Rated the best hearing aids of 2023 by Forbes, the Audien Adam 2 series offers superior sound quality and functionality for a fraction of the price. For just $189 a pair, the Adam 2 features 4 different hearing modes for all types of hearing loss. It packs crystal clear sound, a nearly invisible design, and is even rechargeable.
I actually like them better than my old $5,000 hearing aids. They're so comfortable, I forget I'm wearing them. And the sound is amazing.
The Adam Pro 2 is our smallest hearing aid yet, featuring advanced background noise cancellation and is the world's first hearing aid with built-in UV cleaning that kills 99% of bacteria.
I could not believe how my hearing and life changed without seeing a doctor or having a hearing test.
Join over 500,000 happy customers today and get the hearing you deserve.
Call 1-800-434-9816 or go to audienhearing.com to get your pair of Audien hearing aids starting at just $189.
In a game of few words. Urkel, glasses. Nerd. It pays to know your nerds. If you guys didn't get nerd with me sitting up here on this show, 25 words or less.
Weeknights at 5 and
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. Thank you to everybody who's sending in so many great comments. We'll go through a couple of them right now. And I got Phil right here. We can't see through Hochul's words question. She's a phony. Anyone who's paid attention at all has to see through this. She now wants us to believe she's tough on crime. And then we'll just say they said baloney. Baloney, right? If OSHA, how about this? If OSHA looked at the police department like a company that had rules that endangered their employees, they would hold their employer responsible. Perhaps there needs to be accountability for the people that make the rules that harm. It's a good point. You know, we were talking off the air, and I know I've had Sheriff Allerton. At some point when you see these laws coming from Albany, you've got to ask the question, who would go into law enforcement?
Right, that's so true.
And that's why, like you said, thank the people that you see that are in law enforcement, because it's so much more difficult than we can even imagine. Not just putting their lives on the line every day, but then they have to deal with the morale of these issues coming out. They have to deal with the insanity of arresting the same person 25 times. I don't know how they can do it.
I don't know how they do it. I mean, and I think it's important for us to say, you know, maybe I might not do it in New York City, but, you know, when you see our law enforcement in our communities, you have to just say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for protecting us. When I walk by the state troopers in the Capitol, I always just say, hey, thank you for what you do for us. And they say, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Just little things like that will mean something. Those words do matter if they see that from the public. I think that will help bring back that, listen, there are people that care. Because all they see is the policies. And as the person who talked about OSHA holding the employer accountable, we can. It's called elections.
Exactly.
And elections have consequences. That's the thing. If we're not voting, if we're not participating in the process and getting out there and voting, then what are we doing? So yeah, we can do that. Elections have consequences. We have an uphill battle in the state because it's so overwhelmingly Democrat in the city, but we have to work at it. The Lee Zeldin came very close. And I think
that's why I'm surprised more are scared.
Time and time again, heard these policies. She's on the wrong side of it, and I think it's going to catch up with her sooner rather than later.
They don't want law enforcement, says a viewer. They want counselors to talk people down with their feelings. That's true. But isn't it amazing, Phil, how many times, like in the instance of Diller, God rest his soul, where these people have, the alleged killer has this background of illegal firearms possession. Right. And the party that's always calling for more gun control on law-abiding citizens, mind you, is the party that somehow these criminals are out without bail with gun. That never made sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of our criminal justice package. If you are in possession or use an illegal firearm, you're reprimanded without bail. And also any gun possession charge would be eligible for a bail eligible offense, because it's not right now. So it's policy after policy that you consider to see. So, you know, we put a very aggressive package forth this week, and we were joined by law enforcement from across the state. We care about law enforcement. We need law enforcement. We need to let them know we have their backs like they have our backs.
Exactly.
So, but you see a number of people in law enforcement leaving the ranks, retirements and record numbers, whether it's outside on the streets, our law enforcement, and inside our correctional facilities as well, because they feel a lack of respect. And I just want, if you're a law enforcement watching this show, we appreciate you. We thank you, and we can't thank you enough for what you do each and every day to keep us and our families and our community safe. Thank you.
Now, I want to change topics to another doom and gloom story. So we joked at the beginning of the program that you have another deadline, April 8th. What are we seeing about the budget? Do you think even the 8th is doable? Or are they just going to keep kicking the can a couple days?
I've for the past 3 weeks, I've kind of said I think the time we really need to, we're in Albany next week for a few days. It's kind of weird how the schedule is, and it can take a whole long time because there's a religious holiday on Wednesday, so we're back up there Tuesday. We have to pass an extender on Sunday, and it's just because we have to have it passed by noon on Monday to meet the payroll. So why they didn't put that in the extender we passed on the other day to cover that, I don't know. But I think the governor wants to have more control of this process. So, but I think the deadline, we need to get a budget passed by that third week of April, because our school districts have to go out to the voters. And they have to have their budgets in place, I think, by the end of April, certified. And right now, usually you use the governor's numbers, and no one can use the governor's numbers. They don't want to, because it's devastating. Half of my school districts, half of the school districts across the state, we're looking at significant funding cuts. I mean, I have I could talk Hammondsport, 30%, the other schools 18, 12, 16%. Some schools one school, Penn Yan School District, was a nearly $2.5 million cut. Several small schools with over $1 million cut. That would devastate our schools, our kids, our programs, our teachers, as far as possible layoffs. It would be a devastating impact. So we need to fix that. We have to get that done sooner rather than later. So I don't think anything. My gut is, it could. Everything changes on a dime in Albany, but I think we really need to get this budget adopted by the week of April 15th, because the following week is Passover, so we're not in Albany that week, and we're supposed to be not in Albany the week after. But we got to get that budget done, especially for school districts and for others who are planning. So
the irony of that being on tax day.
Right. Yes. Exactly. Right.
Get it done by tax day. We got a comment here that says, "We give," and I do this, Hochul too much credit for being the decision maker for New York. It's pretty clear that she's like Biden. Their Democrat handlers tell her what to do and say. I will say she doesn't have. We were talking about this with Joe Semplinsky yesterday. She doesn't have that power like Cuomo did. You notice in these negotiations, he knew how to wield that power. She's a little bit, isn't that interesting?
I just think she says what she wants, but when it comes to getting it, she just doesn't have the ability or the backbone to stand up to the progressive social. The governor controls the process much more than people realize.
Yeah.
I mean, she could just, if she wanted to, she didn't have to do an extender budget. She could just put her whole budget in front of us. And she could put bail reform. She could put all these things in it. She could do, and then the legislature would take an up or down vote. So she could be tough if she wanted to. She's not there.
No, and it's interesting because the New York Post, as you mentioned that, the New York Post was saying, because she said, I've wanted to get rid of bail reform from the beginning. And like we mentioned the other day, like Cuomo's people said, you're not a bystander anymore, then do it, right? Do something about it. But what the New York Post was saying when it came to the bail reform is that they interviewed her, I want to say it was in January, and they said, what would you change about bail reform? And she said, well, as of right now, nothing. So, I mean, it's, this idea that, like I said, Politico had a whole piece, I don't want to get back into this, but a whole piece just telling us, again, like they do with the economy and everything else, never mind what you're seeing, believe us, Isn't it amazing?
Actions speak louder than words.
Exactly. Now, we started our segment here, Phil, with something that I know is very near and dear to your heart, and that's Donate Life. We got a chance to talk about it a little bit on the anniversary show, but I was hoping you could talk about it, being that this is Donate Life Month, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Earlier this week, we passed our annual resolution that proclaimed April as Organ and Tissue Donor Awareness Month in conjunction with Donate Life Month, National Donate Life Month. The goal of which is to help encourage and promote organ donation in our state and encourage New Yorkers and others to register to be an organ donor, because we're really talking about saving lives. We deal with a lot of bills that come through Albany. Some are good, some are not so good, but this is an issue that really should have universal bipartisan support, and it's necessary. And for me, it's a very personal issue because my sister Teresa was a 2-time organ transplant recipient, and she had 2 transplants, one from the kindness of a stranger, the other from in 2006 I had the privilege to donate a kidney to her. And she passed away in 2013, but I saw firsthand how organ donation can impact someone's quality of life.
Sure.
But I tell everyone, my sister Teresa was a lucky one. She had 2 transplants. I didn't know how bad the numbers were in New York State until I went to Albany and stepped on that floor in 2011. And granted, we've made progress over the past 12, 13 years on this issue. But right now, right now, there's nearly 8,000 New Yorkers on the transplant list. 1,100 have been waiting for more than 5 years. There are 52 registries across the country in the states and territories. New York is number 50 out of 52. We're ahead of Puerto Rico, and we're ahead of New Jersey. We have the third highest need for organ donors, but the third worst organ donor enrollment rate. And sadly, last year, we lost nearly 400 New Yorkers waiting for a life-saving organ transplant. So we can and we must do better. But there is good news. The one statistic I would share that is promising if people think about it, and they should know if they walk away remembering any one statistic. One person who donates at the time of their death can save up to 8 lives and impact the lives of 75 others. I'll just say it again. One person who donates at the time of their death can save up to 8 lives and impact the lives of 75 others through eye and tissue donations. So we have made tremendous progress. You know, we passed Warren's Law, where which allows them, when people go for the license, you have to answer a question: do you want to be an organ donor? You either say yes or skip the question. But you don't have to say yes, but you have to answer it to get your license processed. In 2015, I believe it was, so we passed allowing 16 and 17-year-olds to register their intent to be an organ donor.
Right.
So when they become 18, it becomes automatic, and 16 and 17-year-olds are going to fill out their license, and so that's a good time to ask the question. And God forbid if someone happened to them at 16 or 17, their parents would have that decision, but they're registered their intent to do so. And I was never so proud as a parent when my kids came home with their permits and it had organ donor checked off, and I didn't even talk to them about it. They've heard me talk about it, like, you know, different things on the floor, but for them to do that on their own was, you know, I was proud.
Yeah.
And the other one that really has changed the numbers significantly was 2017. We through regulatory process, created an online donor registry that people can go online, answer a few questions, and they'd be an organ donor. So we've made progress, and I tell people about the progress we've made. When I used to talk about this issue back in 2011, instead of talking about nearly 8,000 New Yorkers on the wait list, I was talking about more than 10,000 New Yorkers on the wait list. When I was talking about, instead of talking about 1,100 people waiting for 5 years, back then I was talking about more than 1,700 people waiting for 5 years. Our donation rate now in New York State, I forgot to mention that, is 47%. Wow. We're 50 out of 52. The national average is 64%. So we're at 47% now. But when I talked about this issue, 10, 11, 12 years ago, we were at 23%.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
It's huge.
You're chipping away, right?
We're chipping away. And, instead of 400 people dying, we're talking 600 people. So we're making progress, but there's much more we can do. We can and we must do better. And I know sometimes, this issue is hard for people to talk about because you're really talking about, one's own death. And I understand that. And what I say, people ask me, what would I say to someone who's on the fence or if they're thinking about it or not sure? I would say, think about it for a minute. What if your mom or dad, your brother or sister, your husband or wife, or God forbid, your son or daughter will need a life-saving organ transplant? And then you heard some of these numbers the statistics in New York that I just gave you, that were 50 out of 52. Maybe, just maybe, you might reconsider your decision and think about this a little differently. And maybe, just maybe, you might consider this register to be an organ donor. What a legacy we can leave behind. Think about it. One person who donates at the time of their death can save up to 8 lives and impact the lives of 75 others. And I will say my colleague, Robert Smolin, a good friend of mine, he and his family lost their 14-year-old son several weeks ago, was hit by a car. They made the decision to donate his organs. He said, and he talked in a very emotional plea and speech on the floor during the resolution, that they've had 5 matches from them. This is something he's committed to. This is a new mission for him. And so people get impacted by this when they're personally impacted one way or another. So that's why if you're not sure about it or don't think about it if it was one of your family members who are in need of a life-saving organ transplant, then maybe you'd think differently about the issue, because at the end of the day, this is about saving lives. So if you're an organ donor now, thank you. If you're not, please think about it. Talk to your family members, have these conversations, and hopefully you might consider registering to be an organ donor today and help save lives.
Thank you, Phil. We got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Wow. You found it.
I did.
The History of Water Part 6? I've been dying to read this.
I know, honey.
I always wanted that book.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install one of our high-efficiency water softeners, we're thinking about hard water and limescale buildup, so you can just think about longer-lasting appliances and softer skin and hair. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
Vamos, dale pues, mamá ya, muévete más loco como solo tú lo sabes. Así es, pon las manos en la cabeza, sacúdete, 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 mira.
Welcome back. Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We're broadcasting live from the Heselson studio. Assemblyman Phil Palmisano is in that studio. Phil, we've covered a lot this morning, so I want to kind of change gears a little bit. First, I forgot to ask you, how did the reading go? At Irwin Valley Elementary, we saw the picture. I showed it on the screen, but I know you were a little nervous going into your big performance.
I had to practice a couple times because I didn't want to mess up in front of the kids. It was great. The kids were fantastic.
The picture was cute as could be, wasn't it?
They asked great questions. They were asking, going through the book, and then they did a project, so they were just great kids. It was great. I really appreciate the hospitality of the second grade.
So they didn't boo you?
No booing, but it was fun. They were happy to post for pictures. It was a lot of fun.
It looked fun, and you liked the book.
It's a great program.
It really is.
We need to make that connection with our young people.
Cornell Cooperative Extension sent out a press release, and they were highlighting the book. It does sound like a good read. I might give it a shot.
It was good.
And the other, right before we go, I wanted to mention this. You had a very special visitor. If you could tell us about that.
Oh, yes. A couple of my colleagues, Brian Mahar and Matt Slater, they organized a Vietnam Veterans Day up in Albany and said, hey, bring a guest, come up. So I reached out to a gentleman I knew, Earl Gleason from Penn Yan. I knew he was a Vietnam combat veteran. He was a mortarman in the infantry division. He was drafted in '68. Served in Vietnam for a little over a year, from September 68 to September 69. And to have him come up there and just see all these other Vietnam veterans and a way to say thank you to them, welcome home. We have a couple of Vietnam veterans in our conference who spoke, and it was really, really poignant. I mean, it touches you. I mean, they didn't get to welcome home like they should have, and they didn't get to thank you. So it was a good way for us to say thank you. I mean, Earl, the thing about him, and not only did he serve there, he served 20 years as a Veteran Service Agency Director in Yates County from 94 to 2014. And I'd known him all that time because I was a staffer from Jim McHale, Rainy Poole, George Winter, so I got to work with him. I kind of like to refer to Earl as a veteran's veteran.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was so committed to his fellow veterans that he dedicated 20 years of his life to helping those in need, guiding them, providing technical assistance. That's the type of guy he was, a great guy and a veteran's veteran. And his service didn't end there either. I said in my statement, I go, his service didn't end there. It just began.
Yeah, it's true.
So he did 20 years as a veteran service officer. He also served 20 years on the Milo Town Board, 6 years on the Yates County Legislature. Just a great, great guy. But probably one of the most valuable things, I am quite sure I got more out of that than he did. And he enjoyed it, but I took him to dinner the night before this, and just talking to him and asking questions I probably never would have had a chance to ask him, and ask him about his experience. And he was getting emotional. I was getting emotional. I mean, it's just really poignant. I mean, he lost some dear friends, and he talks about he goes to the wall, Vietnam Wall every year. And this summer, and I will tell the listeners, they're going to do the moving wall. It's going to be in Penn Yan.
Oh, okay.
So I want to go see that. But he's touched by it. But to be able to sit down and talk to him and just share with him and spend that day with him and just
special.
honor him on the floor was just really, really
it's all about.
special. I mean, we should be, we obviously, there's so many of our veterans that we need to do that too. So as I talked about with law enforcement, I'll say this to the listeners, to the viewers, obviously Memorial Day is coming up. We shouldn't just do it year round. We shouldn't just do it on Memorial Day or Veterans Day. We should do it year round. And these are our heroes. Some paid the ultimate sacrifice to protect us, our families, and our freedom. So there's so much we can do. I always say about, hey, if you're a kid, you can shovel a sidewalk, mow a lawn, rake leaves. You can go volunteer in the nursing home. Or if you're in a classroom, you can send out care packages to the VA. Or really, quite simply, it can just be as simple as going up to a veteran or one of our service men or women in uniform and say, thank you for your service, because they never have and they never will hesitate to lay down their life to protect us, our families, and our freedoms. So I just think it's an important message. And it meant so much more to me than I'm sure it meant to him. But he had a great time, and it was just great having him up there. He was a good friend.
Well, Phil, thanks so much for being on the show this morning. I know we'll talk soon, probably not on the 8th or the 9th. We'll wait until it actually passes, okay?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Have a great weekend, everyone, and join us at 6 a.m. Monday morning for Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox.